right, now this is what we've been waiting for. And I'm really happy to introduce Spencer Anderson, who is the county engineer and the director of public works. And I have to tell you that the first time I met him was many years ago working on the beach redevelopment of the park. And his crew was great to work with. And I think we did a really good job of making it usable and changed it quite a bit, including the direction of water flow. I believe we used to have a lot of flooding there. You did a good job. So I'm going to let him give you the information on what's going to happen out here at Siesta Key. And it isn't only roundabouts. There's a lot of good road work.
He was all excited.
I want him to share that.
Asked him to go get his hair cut with tea.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Like Catherine said, I'm Spencer Anderson, Public Works Director and County Engineer. And just like to give you a quick update on the projects we have going on with roadway projects we have going on. There's other projects that are occurring. I'm going to focus on the roadway projects today. If you have questions on some other things that are going on, I'll take those, answer them if I can. If not, I'll follow up with Catherine on that information.
Hello.
So if you want to go to the next slide.
He could just speak with that microphone. What did Sam say today? Make sure it's.
He was just like, you know, just kind of
So just recapping some of the things we have done recently. Three projects on this slide. Ocean Boulevard, we did some minor but fairly significant upgrades to Ocean Boulevard, the parallel or the pull-in parking spots just at the village entrance there. I think we added 24 parking spots in that area with an EV charging station on one of those spots, and there's an additional ADA spot there as well. We also took the intersection there at Avienda or Whispering Sands against Avienda and Madeira and Ocean, and made that a four-way stop. That was something that came through the Traffic Advisory Council and the board approved. That seems to be working out pretty well for everyone. There's a lot of concern with the speed of traffic in that area, so this was an improvement to mitigate some of the traffic there. In addition to the speed cushions, we put that where the village entrance is. That little median, and we put the speed cushions there. It's the first time we've done that. It was a pilot project that we seems to have worked out pretty well. And one of the biggest concerns about traffic
and I think some Charger kids might have signed up or registered.
is that a lot of them impact the response times for emergency vehicles. Now, these are specifically designed so an ambulance or a fire truck can pass over them because there's three separate ones. The width of those are narrow enough to not have to be traversed over by an emergency vehicle, but they are wide enough to catch like 95% of all of their vehicles. So if you try to go around them, you're going to hit one of them, right? So I'm sure you're all pretty familiar with that. So we're actually working on a code revision. We have a program in county code dealing with traffic calming, and we're going to revise that to start allowing a more broad use of these types of devices.
So by the time they're 17, they're all the same height.
So a couple other ones, the parking lot down at Midnight Pass where the old sheriff's office used to be south of City Point Road. We upgraded that and took that old building down. Put a pervious parking lot in there. There was already some paved areas, but all the new parking was pervious, so it didn't require any additional stormwater treatment. And we've actually leased that out to the Chamber of Commerce. So what they're doing is selling those parking spots or renting them to individual businesses. And we do recoup some money from the Chamber of Commerce, an annual lease that we have with them, and it's working out very well. They're taking good care of the lot. Haven't had any complaints about noise or anything to that effect from the lot. And that's been a big plus for the condo that's just to the south of them. So that's worked out pretty well. And late last year, we finished the drainage project there at Ocean, Heigl, and Lotus. That was a big improvement. You really wouldn't notice it if you drive by. But if you're real familiar with it, there was a large ditch along the side of the road on Ocean and Heigl, and that's been mostly filled in. There's a pipe there now with some inlets, and it does have a small swell over top, but much safer condition for travelers. In addition to allowing an outfall, Banyan Road, which is just on the other side of Outdoor Academy, that had some significant flooding, and that small lake they have in there called Lake Nancy, it didn't have an outfall. So when it rained a lot, they would get feet of water up on that roadway, and this project was primarily designed to help with the drainage from that area into the Grand Canal. And we do have at the end of that a drainage structure that helps to clean the water before it goes out into the Grand Canal. And the last slide are two of our notorious curves on the island. One on Ocean Boulevard just before you get to Heigl. We made some improvements there. If you've gone through there at night, we have some illuminated reflective pavement markers. Generally, you have to have headlights that shine on them to light up, but we have their in-ground solar powered, and they're run I think about 25-foot spacing around the curve, so it's lit during at nighttime. So you can see that more readily. We also improve signage actually at both of these sites, and then that sidewalk there at the Heigl curve, we did some protective measures along the edge of that sidewalk. So so cars don't drive it any longer. Yes.
Because of pictures of it. Why is there an upright in the bike lane as you go there?
In the center.
Pardon?
That one in the center.
Yes, the one in the center. I mean,
Yeah.
you got a bike lane, you got bikes riding, and all of a sudden there's this thing there.
Right.
And it doesn't seem safe.
It's to keep carts out of that. So some of the carts that run up and down the street, they'll go in there because they can. And so we've made it narrow enough, and it's also an additional impediment for a visual notifier for drivers to move to the left of it. So that's
Really.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
You know, he asked me kind of what was going on, so I
Right,
just
it is.
explained. I said, no, it's
Okay. It's something we can look at. I'll have my folks take a look
Right
at that
there.
and see if there's maybe an improvement.
I mean, maybe
Sure.
something red on it or something catch your eye.
One thing I did notice, generally when those are up, they have what are called chevrons on them.
Yeah.
So they're just directional indicators on them that if you know what you're looking at, they are supposed to direct traffic to one side or the other. And sometimes they're yellow and have the black chevrons on them. And so that may be something we can put in out there.
I don't know.
But
It's
I-
just really bad as traveling it as a bike ride.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next is our roundabout project at Beach Road and Midnight Pass. I know everyone's looking forward to this. The drones. But so this is happening, and we have a project funded by the state of Florida. It was a portion of the road transfer agreement that we did with State Road 758 and River Road. When the state took on River Road, we exchanged that for the county taking over 758, which is Stickney Point Road, Midnight Pass Road, Heigl, what's that? Ocean and, well, not Ocean, but as you go around Siesta Drive, Bay Street and Osprey. So all those roads that get back up to Bee Ridge. So this is the general plan view. Like it says up there, we have design that's being finished this summer. We plan to go out for construction bids, and construction will start after season of next year. So we have some time to get through that. About a 7-month construction duration is what we've been told by the consulting engineer. That's all weather dependent, of course. It is starting towards the end of spring into summer, so there may be some delays due to that. But one of the things we are focusing on is maintaining two-way traffic through the duration of construction through that intersection. One of the ideas was to close it off temporarily like they've done on some of the ones in the city. But we are going to maintain traffic through there so we don't push it off into some other area of the key. And next slide.
Answer, why are you doing it? What's the benefit?
It is going to improve safety at the intersection for one, and then two, it'll improve capacity of the intersection, and it also the operation of the intersection itself. The state was going to do a project there to reconfigure the signal, and they originally had, this was back I think in 2015, they had originally come to a roundabout as the preferred design. At that time, roundabouts were still a pretty new thing. And they had changed, because of public input, they changed the design to a modified intersection with signals instead of going to the roundabout. Over time, and with the road transfer and the implementation of several roundabouts throughout the entire county, a lot close to here in the city, we brought back the discussion to the board, and the Board of County Commissioners ended up, although there was a lot of split information as far as people who wanted a roundabout, didn't want anything to happen, or didn't want a roundabout, the board, this is the optimum design for an intersection at this location. Right, I'll get, that's on the next slide.
And
Yeah.
how about bicycles?
Excuse me, can you just let him finish the presentation?
Yeah, let me get to the next slide. And let me get to the next slide, and that'll maybe address them. So that's one of the things we heard. You go ahead and go to the next slide. And we heard from this group, I think I've talked to this group, this is probably the third time specifically with this group when we've talked about this project. And heard a lot of input on how are we gonna improve safety for pedestrians and bicyclists, right? And that's a big focus of all of that intersection. There's a lot of pedestrian movements and bicyclists and dealing with traffic congestion when that occurs out there. So a lot of things that we focused on with this project to deal with that. For one, the difference between a signalized intersection and a roundabout is you reduce the specific points of conflict where you can have a vehicle to vehicle or vehicle to pedestrian interaction, right? And so a roundabout naturally reduces those numbers of conflict points, which are called conflict points. Second is at each of the crosswalks, you'll see that we have designed the flashing beacons like you see up and down on Beach Road. There's about 2 or 3 of them. So each of the crosswalks will have those. The crosswalks, instead of having to go across the entire roadway at one time, we put splitter islands in between each lane. So if you can't get across the entire 2 lanes, you can make it to the center of that splitter island as a refuge until the traffic clears there. All of the crosswalks will be signed and marked appropriately with paint. In addition to the bike ramps. So you talk about bikes. The preferred route for a bicyclist when you go into a roundabout is to depart the travel lane or a bicycle lane and get on to the sidewalks. So the sidewalks are all going to be 10 foot wide. The ones that are out there now are probably 4 to 5 feet wide, 5 if we're lucky. All of the sidewalks around the perimeter and exiting the roundabout will all be 10 feet wide. So that'd be a great improvement, more room for pedestrian staging and also makes room for the bicycles to go through. Florida law does allow bicyclists to stay in the lane, but it is the preferred alternative that the bicyclists depart from the roundabout traffic lane to go through on the sidewalks. And we have ramps in and out of the roundabout for that specific purpose. So we talked about that, our wider paved shoulders coming into the roundabout and out of the roundabout. We had an option to either put curb further out, but we pulled the curb back a little bit and made wider paved shoulders that gives the bicyclist and traffic a little bit more room to maneuver in that area. And we'll have really improved street lighting and landscaping in addition to just the general function of a roundabout slows traffic, and it makes pedestrians significantly more visible. And in addition to all the other things that I mentioned, it's a much more controlled environment for, the combination of vehicular traffic and the large amount of pedestrians that are here. I think it's been working pretty well in the high pedestrian areas, basic to, the city of Sarasota. You've got the new Gulfstream one. I don't know if that's completely done yet, but they have Fruitville 10th, I think, and maybe 14th as well, that are all now roundabouts. And haven't heard any significant negative input on those. Everybody's very cautious about the roundabouts when they go in, and they have been very successful of providing a safe environment and improved traffic circulation. One of the things we benefit to as well is, if we do have a hurricane or a power outage, the roundabout functions. We don't have to worry about lights that go out and have to come out and repair them. So that's a significant benefit to, emergency response and maintaining a positive traffic flow in those areas. Okay, so what we have is a single lane roundabout primarily. One of the things that was brought up in this venue is the need to kind of maintain that Beach Road to Midnight Pass Road left turn. So going west to north pretty much in that area. So what we have done is we've put that turn into the roundabout. We've carried a through lane and a left kind of turn lane in that direction. So there's going to be, if you're coming east on Beach Road, you'll have the option to go through or go around to the left. So that's the only other place, and so it's quasi 2 lanes in that, but it's still technically a single lane roundabout. Yes, ma'am.
I'm concerned about bikes. I'm concerned about bikes on Siesta Key all the way around.
Okay.
The bike lanes are shrinking in the straightaways. And now you're putting bike racks up to put them on the sidewalks with the people that are walking. this piece of property has a parking area during the heavy parking times.
Mhm.
And people are walking from here over to there in masses. They're pulling buggies, they've got little kids, they're all kinds of things, and you want bikes to go up onto the sidewalk, but that it's asking for a mess. If you're gonna, it's nice that you're thinking of allowing it, but it doesn't work with that many people. So, I mean, bicycles should be able to share the road. So I'm just asking, please consider some signage that tells the cars that they have to share the road with the bicyclists, maybe some markings for the sharrows or something that lets the cars understand bikes have the right of way as well. Now, we're not going as fast as that, but sometimes faster when it's all backed up, frankly.
Absolutely, right.
So I just don't think we're giving enough consideration to what's happening with bicycles on Siesta Key all the way around. It's dangerous. During the heavy times, there's people everywhere. And we, at some places, have been forced out of a bike lane to allow for a sidewalk in front of some businesses that have recently been developed, which makes no sense at all. They just put a sign up and stop the bike lane. Because they didn't have a sign, they put a sign up to stop the bikes, and we have to go out into traffic because there was no sidewalk put in for that development. Crazy stuff. But we have a right to be on the streets, and please put up notification about that. To say, go up there and mess with running over people, go headed to the beach, is not the solution. I'm sorry, I don't mean to beat a dead horse.
No, and that's the thing, right? So Florida, like you said, Florida law does allow for bicyclists on all roads, and they're supposed to get right of way as well, right?
Yes.
And so that is the option. It's not the preferred safest option when you have traffic there, because there's a lot of movements in the roundabout that people might not be expecting to have a bicycle in it.
I'm in support of the roundabout, seriously.
Great.
I think that they work well and I understand them, but they are confusing to many people. The fact that yeah, well, and especially when it's with it only being one lane. I mean, when it's two lanes and one gets to go this way and one gets to go that way and so forth, it's confusing. This, I think, is less confusing. But don't forget the cyclists.
Okay.
We have them everywhere on this key.
No doubt.
Thank you.
Would
Yes.
you like to go to the next slide up there? Because we've got about less than 15 minutes.
Okay, let me carry it through the end of the presentation, and we'll do, I think there's time for comments afterwards. So let me get through here. The next, so this is the intersection of Ocean and Heigl. A very challenging intersection there with the stop on Ocean and the through traffic at Heigl. So what we have planned for the month, a couple weeks in June, is we're going to reconfigure this with what's called a mini roundabout. It is a temporary implementation, kind of like the speed cushions that are out there at on Ocean. But it is going to be put in, it'll have all the appropriate signage and striping, but it's just going to reconfigure that intersection into a kind of a circular feature there that can allow traffic to come in and keep moving instead of having that real challenging intersection with the one stopped on the legs. The great thing about this is it is temporary in nature, and this isn't like another pilot project as the speed cushions kind of worked out. We're trying this here because we have had a lot of complaints about this intersection and are implementing this on a pilot project basis. If it works out, we'll leave it, or we could potentially have more permanent improvements made that are concrete or whatever in the future. But this is something that we're going to put in. It takes about 2 weeks. We're going to do it with county resources, in addition to the manufacture of the roundabout implement that's going to come out and give us some direction. So
please clarify this location. Is this what we currently have the park and the light?
Yes.
The Y?
no, that's Heigl and Midnight Pass. This is Ocean and Heigl. That corner I just showed with the drainage project,
Yeah.
right there. Okay.
Here's the light down here. The light's up at the
Yeah, the
top,
light's just to the north there.
right?
So this really won't require much of anything other than there. So if you can go to the next slide, if you have, let's see if that's going to work or not. No. So I did have just a kind of a quick video of what this stuff looks like. But if you want to see what it looks like, the manufacturer's name is Wrks Roundabouts. And if you go into their website, there's a video in there that kind of shows you what it is and what it does. So it is small, But what it does also, it allows for, if there's large trucks that come through, they just drive over it. So large trucks mean semi trucks, not the big pickup trucks that come through all the time. So it's something we're trying out. It's been used a lot of other places, and one of the gentlemen that works with me that runs our transportation group was experienced and exposed to this and had this idea, and we're actually pretty excited to get this put in and see how it could help improve safety at that intersection.
Are you making any changes to the stop line?
No, sir. No, sir. I'd like to put a roundabout in there too. But I don't want to get lynched tonight, so I'm not going to say that.
Has there been any suggestion of that or?
It seems like it would be a good place for one, me talking personally. There's a lot of history with respect to that intersection and how the signal went in, and people are pretty passionate about it. We brought it up here before and didn't quite get tomatoes and lettuce thrown at me, but I almost did. So let's see how this one works out and see how the one at Beach and Midnight Pass work out. And this seems like a natural place at Heigl and Midnight Pass for a roundabout. We've got a lot of room there, and it's something that might be in the future, but we don't have any plans for that right now.
I have a
Yeah,
question,
One other question over here.
and I have a question for
Excuse
the,
me, he has a question right here.
Yeah.
This one here, I think, is probably worked pretty good.
I hope so.
I think it probably will. I like it, but the one over there at midnight in Beach Road, there's probably no talking you out of it. So is there any way, and I did a lot of this when I was a fire commissioner with traffic and stuff, I'm no genius, but during the season, when we're really jammed, if we add stoplights to this that could be operational at times, meaning you turn the red light on and you give that a chance to go on for a minute and pedestrians cross. It could work, but I think, there's about 4 months of the year that it probably will bottleneck pretty heavy. So if we could maybe think about adding traffic lights there as.
That could certainly be an option. I'd like to get it in. We do have that actual configuration. If you're familiar with where Lakewood Ranch Boulevard intersects with Fruitville Road, there's a new roundabout just south of Fruitville Road there where the library is and where the old Swift Mud building used to be. They actually have a light on the leg that goes to Coburn Road. There's a light there to keep that intersection kind of or that roundabout clear so it doesn't get clogged up. So it is something we can certainly retrofit into this if we need to in the future. But we're so far down the road with the FDOT funding and their approval of the plans.
Maybe we could just wire it in.
Yeah, we're certainly able to make retrofits as need be. So let's see how it works out.
Thank you for the village.
We have one more time for one more question before he finishes, and Jean had somebody on the line. Can you read what your question is, Jean?
I did, but I didn't understand it.
She didn't understand.
No, so I sent him back.
There's a gentleman back
Okay.
there.
Okay, but then let's get one more question here and then let him finish the project description. One more question who hasn't had a chance. Who else has?
Sir, I'm in that gray shirt there. You've been holding your hand up for a while, sir. Yes. Yes, sir.
With all due respect, sir, I am not a fan of roundabouts. Roundabouts is something that are very unfamiliar to the American public. If you look at least the last time I looked at a driver's manual, they don't make any mention of learning how to drive through a roundabout. The roundabouts that I see in Sarasota that have been pretty functional, that the ones that are downtown on a 2-lane. And you can manage it. That's something that appears to work. But the one thing that I can say is that the roundabouts are, in my opinion, geared for residential nature, but they're not geared for commercial. Maybe in England, because they grew up with them and they know how to do it. But not in the United States. The drivers in Sarasota County, and the drivers that visit Sarasota County, come from Illinois and New York, etc. I came from New York many years ago. No roundabouts, sir. Not really. None.
Okay.
And as far as that's concerned, it's asking for a major problem. One of the problems that I can tell you
is that there is a good amount of literature that exists that I've read.
Sir, if you have a question, I'd be happy to answer it. But, yeah, just go ahead with your question, because I do have a few more slides. Yeah.
You're gonna be roundabout at, where at the intersection of the location of the firehouse, is that correct?
It's just to the east of that, yes.
Okay. What is the amount of impediment to those paramedics and fire vehicles, emergency vehicles, with the use of a roundabout as compared to having stoplights? Realizing this, that in given situations of the population that you do have on Siesta Key, which would be the residents that live there, not the people who visit and go to the restaurants. And well, some of the restaurants.
So to answer your question about emergency response, we've coordinated very closely with emergency management, and we've taken care of all of any, if they had any issues, we've addressed them, and they don't have any concerns with the roundabout.
They have no concern.
That's correct.
Okay, well, how many deaths will it take for you to take that roundabout down?
Hopefully, we don't have to go to that eventuality.
My
right.
experience is
Can we go on a question
My
after,
experience.
so we can.
How about I go to the next slide?
Let him
Yeah.
finish his presentation.
So the next slide is dealing with, okay, keep going?
Yeah.
And then, okay, so resurfacing. We've got 26 lane miles of roadway that we're gonna be resurfacing towards the end of this year and the next year on Siesta Key. And that's just Siesta Key. It's a lot of pavement. It's an expensive project. Our resurfacing projects have nearly doubled in price over the past couple of years. So this project, if you had been paying attention to it, it's probably been delayed a year because of the cost increases and having to wait for the next year's budget in order to get the work done. We did add Beach Road onto this because just the road, it's a little bumpy, especially, it's weird, especially going in the westbound.
Yes.
The eastbound is not quite as bad as the westbound, but I drove out there. It's amazing how different the side. So that's indicative of something underneath the pavement that's a problem. So we're going to go in and make sure that we take care of that issue instead of just putting new pavement on top and then resurfacing or it getting bumpy again sooner than later. So just normally resurfacing project, it will require some temporary lane closures and some flaggers of traffic. And it's just, I mean, you see what's going on now with the DOT's project that I've got some information on. But this is really good. We're looking forward to getting this done. There's been a lot of requests for resurfacing in these various areas.
You want a traffic pump?
No, not at this moment.
You want to,
Well, yeah, well, that's true.
Spencer, do you want to go on to the next thing you have about your project for this? Or is there something else on it?
Oh, that's it. Go ahead. Yeah, and so with that project, we're gonna go ahead to the next slide. Our curve that we talked about earlier, where we put in all the lights and the sign things. What we found out is that curve, it's typified as a broken back curve. And that means you're going around the curve and it makes this slight but quick adjustment to another angle in the curve instead of being a smooth transition around it. And what we've looked at this and identified that that's really the case. It's probably contributing to a lot of the errant vehicles that miss a turn, in addition to other things that happen in the village and people going out at night and whatnot. So we're going to do what we've looked at it. We've got enough right of way in order to not really align, but to smooth this curve out so it's a more even transition as you go around. So it's not this incremental, slight turning movement instead of a curve movement. So that's going to hopefully make a big difference when we get done with that. And I think maybe the last slide is I did get some information from the DOT on their project. It's up here. They've got about 90% of their sidewalk work done. They've done most of the structural asphalt, some beach road up the shadow, I think shadow long way, right? And they're, as you know, they're working on Midnight Pass Road now. And that's all being done at night. I think that they've done a pretty good job with the public outreach, and it is having some noise at night if you're in the area, but much rather be doing the paving at night than during the day.
Yes.
I think that's it. So now we need any questions.
Now, I have one over here. the lady in front.
Okay, I'll get you next. Get back.
Are you considering repaving Siesta Drive? It is so lumpy. Siesta Drive.
I think that's on the map. I don't know if you can move back, but
That's in the city.
Well, it's in the city, but it's a county road now.
Oh, okay.
So we inherited that from the state, which I'm really happy about. With that, we do. It is our road, right? So it's a county road in the city. We love our city partners.
City up there, but,
Right.
we really need help on that road.
I don't see it on the map, but I can confirm that. Certainly, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
You recently put in a new storm drain by Captain Wrks. The traffic was backed up to Turtle Beach, from Stickney Point Road to Turtle Beach.
Okay. This is down at Old Stickney Point Road?
No, on Stickney Point Road down. This was around, right around Captain Wrks.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm with- Yes, okay.
At Stickney Point Road,
Uh-huh.
you're putting in a storm drain. The traffic was backed up from there all the way to Turtle Beach. And doctor's appointments had to be canceled in our household.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that may be a part of the resurfacing project. I'm not aware that where the county was doing anything. Yeah.
We asked them, my daughter did,
Uh-huh.
say, what are you doing? And they said, well, we're supposed to be putting another one right now, but we could stop, that's because people can't breathe around.
Yeah, that sounds like a good alternative. Yeah, I'll contact the state folks and bring that to their attention. Obviously they heard about it pretty quickly since they called off the other one that they were planning on doing.
Might have been people claims.
Okay. All right. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just suggesting, I think the greatly helpful, not greatly help the flow of traffic on the highway. But people get behind those trolleys and you have to go inch by inch by inch when they stop.
Yeah.
Let everybody off, so then you go back on, and then you can inch along. Now, they could easily, I think, make some cut out. Let them probably have a cut out, but you can go to the right or the left. Let his people off, let them back on, and let the normal flow of the traffic go at a normal pace.
Yeah.
This way.
Yeah.
On that, Spencer, you can do a private-public, agreement. I talked to some condos and they were like, we'd love to have it stop like in our parking lot, you know how some of them are. So I think you probably work it out with public-private partnership.
And that is really the issue. There isn't, I mean, the right of way is very tight. We're lucky if the sidewalks in the county right of way. So it would take either property acquisition, which I don't know that they can validate that. And I'll talk to our transit director and suggest that to her and see if there can be anything in more further consideration with that.
4 months you can't get out of there.
Yeah.
You're supposed to go, let's say, for 20 minutes. You have to get 40 minutes or 60 minutes to get to where you're going. That's not right. That's not fair to the inhabitants of the key.
That's another issue. I guess the trolley with the county and the bus service is another issue. And I think it interface with what you do, but that's a whole nother area.
It is, it's our transit department
Is
and Jim
part-
Grog is the director of that, but I'll talk to her and see if we can get some feedback. Yes, ma'am.
Just wanted to ask you, come out on Midnight Pass quite a bit to go to the South Bridge. Did you say on the roundabout, there's gonna be a designated lane for us to take a left to get, because during season, we're never gonna be able to get in that roundabout, I don't think, with all the cars coming to the beach.
Right.
Yeah, so we're on this part.
Yeah.
I guess still make a left. On South Beach, Southbridge.
There will be one, you'll be exiting the roundabout, there will be, but entering it, there won't.
So everybody could just totally block us.
And they
And
will
back
do
it
that
up
because
and not
people
let us
are
out.
waiting, they're hurrying to get a space. to
Right.
park for the beach. And we're gonna try to get over to the South Bridge.
Mhm.
How are we gonna get?
Around.
Okay, yeah, I hear you, and if that really becomes a problem, something that Mr. Holder has brought up, like a signal that can temporarily, cue traffic behind it to allow that to be open is something we could look at in the future if that does become a problem. Yes, ma'am.
Regularly that might pass to.
Right.
So is there a comment would be polite and timing to allow more traffic through there, because regularly we're still on Ocean and can't make a left normal on Michael, that I'm afraid is going to back up at that light and no one will ever be able to move through as quickly as they do.
Okay, and we have recently installed some signalization monitoring at that location in addition to the signal out at the Stickney Point and midnight pass. So all the signals on the island, we have the ability to see a camera, doesn't record anything, but we can see existing conditions and make modifications or program in modifications for the future if we need to. Yes, sir.
These crosswalks you're gonna add to the circle, are they gonna be on demand?
Well, that's one of the things that we've talked about, and
On demand, how do you anticipate?
Yes.
enough traffic?
But-
You have a crosswalk going down Beach Road.
right. So one of the things that we'll have to plan into this is some kind of program delay in how many times you can push the button. And it's something like a countdown that happens with the signals. We've learned a lot with the signalization that's gone on with the Legacy Trail and modifying the standards slightly so they work better for traffic and the bicyclists for safety. Some of those were creating some pretty interesting points of conflict there. So yeah, so there we anticipate there will be some delay. I don't know what that, seconds of delay between when the light goes out to when it can be activated again.
Good question
Let
for
me
you.
just stop now because I want to make sure we don't lose the time that we have for other things that people have told me they want to make sure to hear about. And you can look on your agenda to see what some of them are. So if there are some significant questions, please send them to us and we will make sure that he gets them. And we will get answers and we will do a summary of some of this anyway. It'll be part of our video online, but we have these questions that will get answered. What you may not realize is Spencer probably sees some of this more often than you realize. I'm talking like half-day meetings, so you are getting services from us. I just want you all to know. Not always fun, right?
Oh,
Yeah, right, yeah. Well, we are meeting there, and I just want you to know that we are doing a lot of work in the background that you may not understand just yet. But I'm so happy that you had a chance to learn some of these details because there are some good things. I've lived here for 30-some years and I know where I live. I have never seen a road resurfaced. Hallelujah. Thank you. So I'm grateful. I didn't know about that until just recently. That was a nice surprise. So please send us your questions. We'll get a summary to you.
Okay.
And if it's something you haven't heard about and you think it's really important, please write it to us, okay? Because we do need to go on. You think it's something that we haven't talked about?
Generic question.
Okay.
I appreciate the person Henry's comment today about the roundabout
Yeah.
city and the county.
Yeah.
Is that a requirement or are we gonna have roundabouts on the keys or leave lines of sight clear for pedestrians and drivers?
So you're talking about the art that the city has put in some of the roundabouts, right? And that's an ongoing debate of whether it should be, if it should be obscured, because you're supposed to be focusing on what's to the left when you're entering the roundabout. So if you can see through it, you kind of lose focus on what you should be focusing on and looking across the roundabout. So as far as what's going to be in the middle, we haven't determined that yet. But I don't believe there isn't any plan for a public place of art.
Low land.
Yeah.
Pedestrians.
All right, well, I thank you, Spencer, and I know that we all will have. Well, thank you. And this presentation is available on our website. You can come back on and see some of these photos and think about what you learned. So it will still be in place, and that way, when you start to see some things happening, it won't be hopefully quite as frightening. But some things will be happening, and I'm just hoping that wherever you are, you find that after all the trouble, that it is well worth it. I have to say that unfortunately, we are now missing Nancy Dieter, but I was at a commission meeting probably a couple of months ago when she was hearing more about roundabouts, and she said, "Now, is there a problem there? We've had a lot of accidents." And they said, "Well, no." And she said, "Well, I just don't want to have to undo these things after we get them in because we are having accidents." So I just want you to know that we've all learned that and heard that, and we've heard it from her, and we're not forgetting. So just know we'll keep a focus, our ears open, and we have a very good open dialogue that we have had for some time, and we will continue to have it. So thank you again, Spencer, and thank you all that did ask some great questions.